The first time I saw her standing on my porch with a warm tray of homemade cinnamon rolls, I smiled without realizing that a single careless joke would unravel years of loneliness I had hidden behind laughter. I had survived heartbreak, buried dreams, and convinced myself that life only moved in one direction. But that quiet Sunday morning on a peaceful farm in rural Tennessee would become the day I learned that sometimes the words we throw away as a joke become the very words that change our future forever. If you believe kindness, hope, forgiveness, compassion, and second chances still exist in this world, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement. Leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, and subscribe to the channel for more heartfelt stories that remind us how powerful love and grace can truly be. My name is Nathan. I was 58 years old, living alone on a small farm outside Franklin, Tennessee. The house had belonged to my parents, and after they passed away, it became both my shelter and my prison. My marriage had ended nearly 12 years earlier, not because of betrayal or anger, but because life slowly pulled us apart until there was nothing left except silence. Our only son had moved across the country to Oregon with his own growing family. We spoke often, but phone calls could never replace the sound of footsteps echoing through an old farmhouse. Over time, I became known as the quiet neighbor who fixed broken fences, helped stranded motorists, and never missed Sunday service at the little white church down the road. People appreciated me, but nobody truly knew me. Loneliness is strange that way. It hides behind routines so well that even the person living through it begins to believe everything is fine. A few months after moving into the neighboring farmhouse, Rebecca became part of the community. She was 42, cheerful without pretending life was perfect, and carried herself with a quiet confidence that drew people in. She had inherited the farm after losing her aunt, and instead of selling it, she worked every day to restore the land. Everyone admired her determination, though few knew how many nights she cried alone after long days of exhausting work. Our friendship began with borrowed tools, shared meals, and conversations across old wooden fences. She often baked too much and claimed she needed help finishing it. I suspected she simply disliked eating alone. I never argued. One bright afternoon, while repairing my porch railing, she walked over carrying another plate of cinnamon rolls. The breeze carried the scent of fresh hay across the fields, and for the first time in years, my home felt alive. Watching her laugh at something completely ordinary made me forget my age for a moment. Without thinking, I smiled and said that if I were 20 years younger, I would probably ask her to marry me. I expected laughter. Instead, Rebecca looked at me with gentle eyes that suddenly carried an unexpected sadness. She smiled softly before saying that perhaps the real problem wasn't our ages. Perhaps it was that I had already decided my best years were behind me. Those words settled into my heart like rain on dry ground. She wasn't rejecting my joke. She was challenging the story I had been telling myself for years. That evening, I sat alone on my porch long after sunset. I realized I had spent more than a decade convincing myself that happiness belonged to younger people. Every invitation, every possibility, every dream had been quietly dismissed before it even had a chance. I wasn't protecting myself from disappointment. I was protecting myself from hope. Over the following weeks, everything began to change. I joined neighbors for community events instead of making excuses to stay home. I finally repaired the neglected garden my late mother had loved. Rebecca and I started volunteering together at the local food pantry every Saturday morning. Watching families smile over simple acts of kindness reminded me that purpose often returns before happiness does. One afternoon, my grandson visited the farm for the first time. Rebecca showed him how to feed the chickens and gather fresh eggs. Their laughter echoed across the fields, and I caught myself imagining a future I had refused to picture before. Not because I expected life to be perfect, but because I had finally stopped believing it was already over. Months later, during the town's autumn harvest festival, surrounded by friends, church families, and neighbors, I stood beside Rebecca beneath strings of warm lights hanging across the town square. I told her that I had spent years measuring life by birthdays instead of blessing. I admitted that fear had aged me far more than time ever could. This time, there was no joke in my voice, only gratitude. Rebecca smiled the same gentle smile that had first challenged my heart, and simply took my hand. She said life wasn't asking either of us to be younger. It was asking us to be brave enough to live the years we still had. If this story has touched your heart so far, please take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who may need a reminder that hope has no expiration date. Your support helps these stories reach people who may be searching for a little light today. Before we reach the end, I'd love to ask you something special. Please leave a comment below and tell us, do you believe it's ever too late to find love, purpose, or a second chance? Your words might encourage someone reading through the comments who needs hope today. The following spring, our families gathered beneath the blooming dogwood trees on my farm. There were no grand decorations or expensive celebrations, just laughter, homemade food, old friends, children running safely through the fields, and two people who had finally stopped letting fear decide their future. Looking around, I realized that life had not given me back my youth. It had given me something far more valuable, a heart willing to believe again. Sometimes the greatest love story isn't about finding the perfect person at the perfect age. Sometimes it's about discovering that the doors we believed were permanently closed had quietly remained unlocked all along, waiting for the courage to turn the handle one more time.